decide that just because somebody came from another country, they are automatically some kind of criminal, that does sound kind of xenophobic to me, because you are using a paintbrush to paint an entire group of people where the vast majority of them are coming here because they are actually seeking a better life. Aren't talking about the lack of integrity when it comes to the president's family's visas. Let me remind y'all that Melania, the first lady, a model. Let me tell you how you receive an Einstein Visa. You're supposed to have some sort of significant achievement, like being awarded a Nobel Peace Prize or a Pulitzer, being an Olympic medalist, or having other sustained extraordinary abilities and success in sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. Last time I checked, the First Lady had none of those accolades under her belt.
Representative Jasmine Crockett gave a masterclass speech in holding power accountable, protecting immigrant rights, and defending the integrity of our nation's visa system.
It's interesting that we're being accused of wanting all kinds of criminals to be on the streets, or that we don't believe that people should show up to their meetings and appointments. Last time I checked, there's a lot of people that are actually being grabbed as they are going in for their appointments. In fact, we know that one of the candidates that was recently running in this mayoral, he ended up being arrested because he decided that he was actually going to escort people that are actually showing up to their meetings. Or we know that the Pope, yes, the Pope himself, decided that the church may need to have people that are going to escort people as they're going into their meetings, because the reality is that what they are claiming what they want to do versus what they're actually doing, the actions don't match up. And while we are supposed to be talking about visas, somehow we continue to cherry pick and talk about one criminal act and another criminal act. And it is so very interesting to me that, yes, we will say people are xenophobic, because when you start to decide that just because somebody came from another country, they are automatically some kind of criminal, that does sound kind of xenophobic to me, because you are using a paintbrush to paint an entire group of people where the vast majority of them are coming here because they are actually seeking a better life. But let me get to what this hearing is supposed to be about. The idea that Trump and my Republican colleagues want to restore integrity and security in the visa process is actually a joke. Let me be clear, integrity is not snatching lawful visa holders off the streets and throwing them into unmarked vans. Integrity is not revoking visas based on social media posts that hurt somebody's little feelings because kids decide that they want to go after Trump or this administration. We have a thing called free speech in this country. And since we're talking about integrity, I'm confused as to why my Republican colleagues aren't talking about the lack of integrity when it comes to the president's family's visas. Let me remind y'all that Melania, the first lady, a model, and when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks, Cindy Crawford, or Naomi Campbell level, applied for and was given an EB-1 visa. And what's that stands for is an Einstein Visa. Now, y'all that don't know, let me tell you how you receive an Einstein Visa. You're supposed to have some sort of significant achievement, like being awarded a Nobel Peace Prize or a Pulitzer, being an Olympic medalist, or having other sustained extraordinary abilities and success in sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. Last time I checked, the First Lady had none of those accolades under her belt. It doesn't take an Einstein to see that the math ain't mathin' here. Nevertheless, what Republicans are doing with this reconciliation process, the travel bans and revoking visas, jeopardizes our national security. It threatens our communities, our higher education, and our economy. Visas like the largely vetted J visas for higher education and M visas for trade, training, attract the next innovators, medical providers, researchers, and educators that we need to build on American success. I'm not gonna mess up your name, so I'm not doing that. But I'm with you, okay? In your experience, do individuals on J or M visas typically improve or impair our economy?
They generally improve the economy, and I can give a brief example. My wife is a very successful woman. She makes a ton of money, which I'm grateful for. And the reason why we're able to do that while having 3 children is because of the au pair visa, somebody who is here on a J. Okay. Who is here and able to supply this for us. But I also want to defend Melania real quick. Not everybody could marry Donald Trump, and I think that's quite an achievement. So I think she deserves credit for that. Nobody up here could have done it.
You sure right, I couldn't do it. But anyway, in fact, J visa holders contribute $43.8 billion to the U.S. economy and support more than 300,000 jobs. And make no mistake, immigrants improve the health of U.S. citizens too. Despite the fact we already have a doctor shortage, Trump's reckless travel ban and visa overhaul are exacerbating this crisis by impairing hundreds of hospitals with foreign-trained doctors set to do their residencies here in the United States, meaning fewer people will get the help they need and more people will die. Now, let me remind you that Republicans are trying to gut Medicaid. Roughly 4.5 million people receive caregiver services through Medicaid, and most of these folks are in red states. And wouldn't you know that in 2023, Kaiser Family Foundation estimated that almost 30% of long-term care providers or home caretakers were immigrants. It's like Republicans want Americans to suffer. Now, Republicans say visas make us less secure, but let's talk about how visas given to victims of crimes like rape, murder, human trafficking, torture, abduction, kidnapping, to help law enforcement with their investigation or prosecutions of these crimes. These folks are risking their own security for broader safety of Americans and our communities. Thank you so much.
This hearing was supposed to be about visas, but as Crockett pointed out, what we often see in practice under the Trump administration is a distortion of the very policies Republicans claim are about integrity and security. Crockett methodically dismantles the argument that lawful visa holders are criminals or threats. She points out that snatching people off the streets in unmarked vans or revoking visas for social media posts is not security, it's intimidation. She highlights the hypocrisy of an administration that touts enforcement while conveniently ignoring how privilege operates when it comes to their own family. For instance, she raises the eyebrow-raising fact that Melania Trump received an EB-1 Einstein Visa designed for individuals with extraordinary accomplishments in science, arts, education, business, or athletics. Think Nobel Prizes, Olympic medals, or groundbreaking achievements. Crockett notes that while Melania Trump does not have these accolades, she was granted the visa, making the math simply not add up. This is a concrete example of how political power and connections often bend the rules for the few, while ordinary immigrants face unprecedented barriers. But Crockett doesn't stop there. She puts the focus where it belongs, on the real contributions immigrants make to our country. J and M visa holders, she explains, are not just numbers. They are teachers, researchers, doctors, caregivers, and innovators. Her own anecdote about the au pair visa enabling her family's success makes the point relatable and personal. Statistically, J visa holders alone contribute nearly $44 billion to the U.S. economy and support over 300,000 jobs. That is not a fringe issue. That is a backbone of American prosperity. She also underscores the life-saving role of immigrants in healthcare. With a growing doctor shortage, especially in rural and underserved areas, blocking foreign-trained doctors from completing residencies in the U.S. is not only harmful, it literally costs lives. And when you consider that almost 30% of long-term care providers in 2023 were immigrants, it's clear that these policies would hurt the most vulnerable Americans, including seniors and people in red states that Republicans claim to protect. Crockett also highlights the moral dimension, noting U visas for victims of crimes like human trafficking, sexual assault, and abduction. These visas empower survivors to cooperate with law enforcement without fear of deportation, ultimately enhancing the safety of entire communities. She frames the conversation not as a partisan issue, but as one of justice, ethics, and public safety. What makes Crockett's approach so compelling is how she blends facts, statistics, and human stories with sharp, precise accountability. She connects high-level policy issues to everyday realities, the impact on hospitals, schools, the economy, and even family life. She also calls out hypocrisy with clarity, showing that when rules are enforced selectively, strictly for the vulnerable, loosely for the powerful, it undermines trust in institutions and the principles of fairness and equality. Her commentary reminds viewers that immigration is not a threat, it is an engine of progress and safety for America. It's about the next generation of innovators, the educators shaping young minds, and the doctors keeping our communities healthy. By focusing on evidence, ethics, and the real-world impact, Crockett illustrates why these policies are not just misguided, they are dangerous to our democracy and our nation's well-being. In short, this hearing is not just about visas. It's about integrity, accountability, fairness, and the moral compass of American leadership. Crockett's message is clear. Policies must reflect justice, protect the vulnerable, and recognize the invaluable contributions of immigrants. And that is something every American, regardless of party, should understand and support. We must remain vigilant and informed about policies that affect immigrant communities and hold leaders accountable to fairness, transparency, and the values that make our country strong.